Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I would argue a real Republican. We're going to be breaking down the debate between Nick the Knife Fuentes and Piers Morgan. It got fiery, it got fun, it got spicy, it got weird. Let's go ahead and bring our combatants onto the stage and continue with the content.
Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it. I can show you. I can name the names. I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them.
All right, a little bit of transformative commentary breaking down. If you want to watch the original, watch the original. Don't complain to me about yapping. It's my stream. I'm going to yap on it, all right? So my assessment of this is that there's a couple of competing narratives within the Judeo-Christian and Christian nationalist perspectives of history, and I'll try to be very brief. The Judeo-Christian narrative is that without Abraham, without Moses, without David, without Solomon, we wouldn't have Christianity. And so as a result of the Old Testament effectively being the Jewish holy book, we owe the Jews a theological, spiritual, and historical debt. That means that they should be protected, even if we don't believe the same things. And so while there has been antipathy and hostility between Jews and Christians throughout most of history and medieval history in particular, in the modern era, especially in the wake of the Holocaust, Christians should be protective of Jews because they are human beings. They were God's chosen people. And they are, you know, to some degree, I say to some degree, I should amend that to fully, they are fully human beings worthy of dignity, respect, love, charity, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to the Christian nationalist perspective, the ancient covenant was broken. The covenant between Abraham and the Jewish people and the conquest of Israel and Judea, if you're a biblical literalist, if you actually believe, yeah, good save, thanks. You believe that the old covenant was broken because the Jewish people were presented with the Messiah and the Messiah was rejected by the Jewish people. And so as a result of rejecting Christ, who according to Christians is the Messiah and the incarnation of God on earth, that the covenant is now broken. And so the Jews, the reason why there was antipathy, the reason why there was hostility throughout medieval Europe and into the modern era, and probably resulting in the Holocaust, which of course from a Christian nationalist perspective is exaggerated, they're vestigial, right? And if you don't know what the word vestigial means, you know the arms on a T-Rex? You know how a Tyrannosaurus Rex has this massive tail and these massive legs and massive teeth and a massive head, but then he has these two tiny twig arms that don't seem to be able to do anything? That's the Christian nationalist perspective in Jewish people. They are so historically and spiritually and theologically irrelevant, they might as well not exist. And to some degree, they are traitors to the covenant of God. And therefore, like, should you wipe them out? Should you, Holocaust them? Maybe not if you're like a Christian. But does it ultimately affect like the theological perspective of the world? From a Christian perspective, no. Right? T-Rex had a tiny pee-pee. I'm pretty sure a T-Rex had a cloaca. I think it had a single hole that it pooed and gave sexual juices through. I'm pretty sure dinosaurs had cloacas. But anyways, the whole point is that like That's the hostility that we're talking about, because Piers Morgan and myself and a bunch of other people in the Western world believe in the Judeo-Christian narrative that the Jewish people are people worthy of dignity, respect, and love, and that we owe them a historical and theological debt. Then Bonnie Blue Rex, shut the fuck, shut up. That was brutal. Great breakfast talk. Yeah, my bad. My chat is savage. Whereas, of course, Nick is representative of the Christian nationalist perspective. Oh my God. Quick shout out. Thank you, Fell Runner for the 5, Days Halcyon for the gifted, Anonymous Chatter for the gifted, and thank you to Vazaraka for 5 gifted memberships. Parasocial love. Oh my God.
How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you
We talked about this yesterday. He's setting up a rhetorical trap because there's Jews who refer to the International Jewish Conference or the state of world Jewry.
mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry address.
But Nick, what do you
By the way, we should probably watch that.
mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States, or Europe, or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state.
Dang, bro, I felt like he was about to drop the goyim. I feel like he was on the verge of being like, they see themselves above or separate from the goyim. And for those of you who don't know, the goyim, I've heard it used by Christian nationalists way more than I've heard it used by Jews, but it's a historical word for non-Jews, and it has a derogatory connotation.
Wherever they reside, if they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that.
See, and this is where you have to understand that we are in a competitive political project. And earlier in this interview, Piers Morgan asked Nick if he has aspirations for political power. He might not have individual aspirations for political power, because if he actually ran for Congress, he might get shot, right? But he does want intellectual political power. He does want to have groypers, people who identify as Christian nationalists, who identify with the thoughts of Nick Fuentes. He does want them to infiltrate the Conservative Party, the Republican Party, the Libertarian movement, the TPUSA movement, and he wants them to infiltrate them with his talking points. Because this is what I believe, and I've pulled it up on your screen right now. In case you're not looking at your screen, I'm going to describe it for you. The United States is a liberal or libertarian project, okay? It tries to maximize human freedom. And so when you look at the United States government, it effectively says, in my opinion, that you have to pay your bills, okay? You can't be stealing from other people. You can't be, incurring debts and not paying them back. And we will enforce that socially and through criminal penalty. You have to pay your taxes, which means that for every dollar you make, the government's going to take between 10 and 33%, depending on, what's necessary, which might be extremely larger government compared to what the founding fathers have had in mind, but it's still a thing. Patriarch's like, no. Patriarch and grassroots hegemon really hate the pay your taxes part. And then leave everybody else alone is I think another thing that if you look at criminal prohibitions, U.S. law is written with, you are pretty much allowed to do a whole host of behavior as long as you do not hurt others or realistically hurt yourself. And so you leave everybody else alone, everybody else leaves you alone. And that's kind of like the spirit of the liberal or libertarian project. And in return, if you do these things, if you leave everybody alone, if you pay your bills and pay your taxes, then you get freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. You're allowed to say almost everything that you want to say. You get the right to self-defense up to and including against a tyrannical government. The United States grants you, maybe you don't view it that way, but it enshrines into law, I guess is a better way to say it, the ability to carry private arms, keep private arms, and if the government were to become tyrannical, it actually orders you spiritually. It orders you, it thinks that it is good that if the government becomes runaway and tyrannical, you should overthrow it. And then due process and equality before the law, it says that in reference, if you're accused of a crime, if you violate the pay your bills, pay your taxes, and leave everybody alone statutes, then you will get a fair trial. We will put you in front of a jury of your peers. We will give you an attorney. We will make sure that you don't get like your shit just randomly ganked by random cops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, within this framework, we can tolerate black nationalists, Christian nationalists, fascists, all that kind of stuff, as long as they obey this game. But what Nick wants to do, that I think the Groypers would probably agree with, is they want to climb to the top of this power hierarchy, and they want to remold it in their own image, in which this federal government advocates for the well-being of Christians as a Christian supremacist society. And I'm not even saying supremacist where I'm trying to moral frog. I'm trying to say supremacist in that they truly believe that Christianity is literally true. They think that Judaism and Hinduism and Sikhism and Islam and all that kind of stuff, all that stuff is second tier. And so as a result, it should not have equal footing in line with the federal government. End of yap. Back to the content.
That up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip, I read what they write. I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized and they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're fun.
Okay, number one, Nick does the I have Jewish friends thing, which is pretty funny. And then also I think he says like my best friend is a Jew or whatever. He neglects to mention that his best friend is a Catholic convert.
Funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology.
Lactoid's in chat. Lactoid says, I watched this entirely last night. Fuentes comes across much better than Piers does. By the way, Lactoid's a libertarian. So Lactoid, my assessment so far, I need to get through the rest of the content, but my assessment so far is that Piers caught him flat-footed with clips in the beginning. He also caught him flat-footed with the dad story. He caught him flat-footed with the accusations of racism, and using the clips in order to evidence it. But where Piers has lost argumentative momentum from my perspective was either being argumentatively obtuse, like he was pretending that he didn't understand per capita, and I felt like that came across as dishonest. And then I also felt that realistically, that's like, and then Nick started seizing argumentative momentum after that. So that's the flub so far. People are telling me that there's another major flub in here where he talks about like Hispanic as a race. And so once again, I'll say it. Piers Morgan is either unintelligent, where he legitimately does not understand per capita and didn't understand what Nick was talking about, or he is dishonest. And you don't want to be either one of those things when you're fighting for the sympathy of the audience.
We believe that Christ is the Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years. And
oh, sorry. I wanted to address this before we moved. Horatio Mantooth says, Nick is not just good, he is really good at this. The left had better take notice because he's a planner and strategist long-term. Calling him the gay Mexican isn't derogatory on his side. Right. What does it say? What does it say that you get stomped out by a gay Mexican? Right? If you're like the academic, if you're a member of the academic class, if you're a member of the legacy media, what does it mean when a gay Mexican stomps you out? Right? It means that you are way too confident in your position. And then that leads to the curiosity where people become increasingly sympathetic to Nick. Lactoid says, yeah, I don't know exactly where you are, but there are a few flubs that come up. The race per capita flub was bad, and I agree that was the first major flub that clearly shifted the momentum. Okay, cool, good. I'm happy we're on the same page.
And they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
But that's
a ton of Jewish friends. Half of them are Catholic converts. Other ones are people that I like to argue with.
Weird, because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
The Jews and Christians have never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian, and of course there have been Christians and there have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts to Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples, they've never been aligned.
As a Roman, I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute what you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. And I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends. I have Jewish friends. We're both Catholics. Therefore, we're Christians. So it doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I'm going to play you this clip.
So Nick is smirking right now because he's shifted gears. And I think this is, once again, I think it was Horatio Mantooth was saying that the left isn't ready for Nick. He's already shifted gears. He's ready to respond to every bad clip he ever has and either laugh and say it's a joke, but it's just a joke, or he's ready to say it's a joke, but there's an underlying point, or he's ready to say, oh, well, I argued about that in the past, but realistically, I don't care about it that much anymore. This is where I focus now. Like, unfortunately, like Nick is ready. He's like, he got into gear for this conversation.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow, because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook.
This one was wild. Honestly, this is the clip that got my attention from Nick.
Cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean, I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon?
Listen. We watched this yesterday. Listen, man. Can I just say it? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm still laughing a little bit. I understand if some of my Jewish audience members are a little uncomfortable right now. Let me explain it. Okay. I was born in the late 80s. All right. I was born in the late 80s. And in the late 90s, when I got around the age of 10 years old, we would tell racist jokes, right? They were jokes, but they were still jokes. And the 2 jokes that I remember, because they're actually related and they're similar setups. It's, what's the difference between, apologies to my black men in advance, what's the difference between a black man and a pizza? A pizza can feed a family of 5. Right? But don't black poverty, right? And then what's the difference between a pizza and a Jewish person? A pizza doesn't scream when you put them in the oven. Right? So those were normal jokes in 1997. Okay? Those were, FedEx doesn't like either of these. Don't say the rest. I need to look up more. But anyways, the point is that was very common in the late 90s, early thousands. There's irreverent humor. And I'll tell you, there's 2 times I'm a white, straight, cis, heterosexual male. And so as a result, I haven't been offended. I'm not going to finish but have you heard I have a black man in my family tree joke? No. And I think I know the punchline. The punchline is brutal. Oh, no, earshot. No. I disavow. There's liberals and progressives who are super pissed in my chat, and then there's a bunch of like pissed off liberals, and there's a bunch of center right contrarian guys and grapers, and they're making more jokes. Oh, that's brutal. Okay. Anyways, moving on. The point is that in the late 90s and the early thousands, the reason why we were engaging in irreverent humor wasn't because we thought it was like, if we saw those things, obviously we'd be horrified. If we saw actual people getting brutalized and murdered, we'd be horrified. The whole point of irreverent humor is you're taking something that is supposed to be sacrosanct and you're making light of it, right? That's the whole point of irreverent humor. And so for me, like, pearl clutching about that, it happened to me twice, okay? Number one, I was watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they made a joke about how they were going to go into a singing competition, and they were going to pretend to be Army veterans who had like CTE, who had been blown up in Iraq, and how they watched all their friends die, and all that kind of stuff. And I was actually like offended. I experienced the emotion of offense, and I was like, oh my God, is this what it feels to, is this what it feels like to be like, you know, black? Is this what it feels like to be Jewish? Is this what it feels like to be a minority where a white person makes a fucked up joke that you don't think is funny? And then I was like, you know what? This is the first time in my life that I've ever been offended. I deserve this. I deserve to be offended because I have probably offended so many people over the course of my life. I deserve this. And then the second time that I was offended was my brother-in-law. He made a 9/11 joke. He made a 9/11 joke. I forget what it was. It was so fucked up. It was something about like the punchline was people jumping to their deaths in order to avoid burning to death. That was the punchline. And I was like, holy shit, that's fucked up. And then I realized, I was like, damn, I've been making like fucked up World War II jokes for probably decades. So if I had told the jokes that I routinely made to my grandparents, that's probably what they would have thought. And I was like, oh, I deserve this as well. So, so anyways, the whole point is that like we have this generational thing, 90s and thousands bros, millennial bros, they enjoy irreverent humor. It seems like with Zoomers, because in the 2010s, there was like a progressive wave of political correctness that reared its ugly head. And so they have come to enjoy even darker, even more fucked up humor. But the problem is that Nick's not joking. That's the real problem. The problem is that Nick's not joking. And that's why we should be upset about this. Christian Blair says, was it who are the fastest readers in the world, 9/11 victims? They can go 110 stories in a few seconds. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And if it wasn't, it was a spiritually similar joke. That hurts. That hurts my feelings. So anyways, the point is like anybody under the age of 40, they can be offended by what Nick said. They can be offended by the crassness and the humor. Anybody who has a dark, effed up sense of humor is more sympathetic to Nick than they are to Pierce in this moment. It's been, the Holocaust was in the 40s, 1940s. So that's 85 years ago. Anybody, like the only Holocaust survivors would be in their like 90s at this point. Probably most of them are gone. We've had multiple generations to figure out. Israel has been a dominant regional power for probably 35 years. It is to the point that I don't think the Israeli state has truly been threatened on an existential level for 35 years. I know the Israelis probably don't feel that way, but I think instinctively that's at least the way that Americans perceive it. So when can we tell jokes about it? Right? And once again, I know Nick is probably not joking. All right, that was a nice little segue. Let's continue.
Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number?
Sorry, I made this joke yesterday and I got to do it again. Sees cute Jewish girl, gets loud. I think it was 12 million. It's brutal. My apologies.
6 million, something like that.
So you
8 million?
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust?
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could be maybe even.
See, and that's a dog whistle. That's a dog whistle because obviously, he's referencing the fact that there are alleged Holocaust survivors who are too young to be in the Holocaust. They have stories that don't make sense. Their stories seem exaggerated. That's what he's saying right now. Patriarch says, if you can joke about God killing kids for watching corn, then you can definitely make Holocaust jokes. I mean, I think so. Yeah. Fell Runner says the Producers was written in the 1950s. We'll be okay. True.
And be more than that.
So why have you doubted the numbers in the past?
I'll tell you why. I really think that every death is a tragedy. However many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative. And I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But you know what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends, to tell you the truth, is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries. And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West. No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100,000, and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job? That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if your goal, if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you'd want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail and is banned and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
But there is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis in the trials after the war confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation.
Okay. And this is where it's going to get silly. We have debates all the time about everything. Okay. We have debates about what food is the best, whether or not you can put pineapple on pizza, whether, what car is the best, what plane is the best, what European medieval society was the best. Was the Roman Empire as cool as, the movie Gladiator? What movies are the best? What pop culture is the best? What is this? Like, it's a fundamentally Euro-cucked brain, in my opinion, that the history, which I understand is recent, it's only 2 generations old, 3 generations old, but the recent history cannot be in dispute. Whereas with America, we're disputing everything all the time because we're a free society with free freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. Politics, JK, thank you for becoming a member. But the whole point of this is that, like, the Europeans, because the Holocaust was so messed up, because Germany used industrialized, the tools of industry in order to engage in mass slaughter, because many of the Europeans and many of the Americans, much of the Western world, was apathetic to the slaughter of Jewish people. That's why it's been sanctified in American and Western consciousness. So I understand, like, the irreverence, because effectively, Nick says that his grandparents were in World War II. Oh yeah, there's another joke right there. I'll say another joke just to break it up a little bit. Typically you go like, my grandpa, that's not funny. My grandpa died in the Holocaust. And then the other person goes like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I said that fucked up joke. And then you go like, it's okay. He fell out of the guard tower. You get it? You get it? Originally, they thought that you were of Jewish descent and that your family was killed in the Holocaust, but actually your grandpa, your opa was a camp guard. You get it? Actually, that brings up a funny 9/11 joke. There was somebody on Twitter who made like a 9/11 joke. I think they did the birthday reveal joke where they had like pink smoke coming out of the towers, and then somebody posted under it, and they were like, they posted under it like, "That's not funny. My uncle died in 9/11," and then the person, Phoenix, is actually really upset. Sorry, Phoenix, if I'm laughing at you, but your upsetness makes it funnier. So like, my uncle died in 9/11. And so the person who posted the meme actually is like, oh, dang, I got upset, or like I upset somebody. I'm going to check in with them. And they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. It's insensitive. I didn't mean to upset you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, my uncle was the best pilot in the Middle East. Of course, the joke being that his uncle was one of the hijackers. And so he got false sympathy and then he stomped the guy, right? So anyways, the whole point with this is like the problem is once again not irreverent humor. The problem is that Nick isn't joking. And I feel like Pierce is kind of running into a trap now where he's using this like self-righteous sanctimony that doesn't play with the younger generations because they probably don't have grandparents who were in World War II. They probably don't have grandparents who were patriarchs says stop explaining jokes. No. I say the jokes first, then I explain them. All right. Patriarch's right. I'm over explaining. Younger generations don't experience the trauma of older generations. End of sentences.
That was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis.
Well, Fellrunner brings up an important part. 31 likes with 109 viewers. Yes, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. Thank you to Fellrunner, Deus Halcyon, Games Are for Kids, Vazaraka, and Politics JK for contributing financially to the stream so far.
To destroy it. The amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials and for historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very
Joe Vaughn, I see your night school joke. Excellent.
very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than
well,
that.
it could be higher. That is true.
I think it's at least.
But you
I think you're
accept
right.
at least.
It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But it could be 100 times
people
more
are
than
going to be
that.
okay.
He's being sarcastic. What an a-hole. He's using post-ironic humor. God, what an a-hole. God, sorry, man. Patriarch doesn't want me to explain what's happening, but him saying it could be worse than that. It could be 100 times worse. He's being post-ironic. Oh, that sucks.
The people are going to be.
Let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yep.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries. And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything.
Boom, American mindset.
At least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial law. I think people should be in prison.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized, right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about
like fighting word statutes in the state of Ohio, Beef Supreme.
whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized, is my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog marched to prison cells.
Thanks, Politics JK. Sorry, just to share this real quick. Sorry, I'm seeing that I triggered Beef Supreme, which is awesome. I'm gonna have to make a phone call in a second. Sorry. Can you call that center and cancel the appointment? I'll still be working because it's at 1 p.m. Okay. So sorry to, dang, who did I say? Politics JK. Honestly, you got me on that chart you did with Pisco. While rudimentary, I never thought I'd see that thought process. Nice to see actual conservative values still exist. Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm trying. And then real quick with the Beef Supreme, I'm going to try not to get too distracted, but I will pull this up. So we had this huge fight yesterday between me and Beef Supreme, and Beef Supreme is a regular. So it was kind of surprising to me that we got into a big fight. But what we disagreed on was whether or not like fighting words, or whether or not the disorderly conduct statutes, or whether or not the other stuff criminalize speech. And so I think Beef Supreme, and I'm really not trying to straw man, I might just be, I just assume that I'm amnesiac, assume that I have 101 IQ and I'm actually genuinely stupid. What I was kind of taking from what Beef Supreme was saying is that speech is not criminalized in the United States, or speech alone isn't criminalized in the United States. And so for me, I was like, well, that's not true, because if you make threats in person, then you obviously go to jail. But what they pointed out was that they weren't advocating for free speech absolutism, meaning that you should be able to threaten people and not get incarcerated. What they're saying is that the context of it's not the speech by itself. So if you say fire, 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 or if I tell you guys to kill yourselves, it might be a terms of service violation, but I'm not going to go to jail for that, right? Whereas, as an example of context, there was the girl, I think it was in some Midwestern state. She actively encouraged her boyfriend to commit suicide, but the context was that like he was already suicidal, he was waffling one way or the other, and she kept pushing him until eventually he took his own life. And so it's not necessarily the speech alone, because she said something and I said something and those things are identical. It's the context surrounding them that criminalizes it. Lactoid says fighting words doctrine is a huge meme. We can talk about it later if you want. Legally speaking, dead doctrine. Okay. Well, anyways, I just wanted to give Beef Supreme their due.
The stuff they put on social media, right? So yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And there'll be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives. And I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that, because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been, there's never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist and the social consequences still persist. And I think that that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about, lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way. And no other ethnic group has a get out of jail free card.
So that's where my advice to Jewish folk is, you might say, well, my 2/3 of my grandparent bloodline was wiped out in the Holocaust because I'm descended from Ashkenazi Jews. Therefore, my trauma, my experience, my family's trauma, my family's experience shouldn't be questioned. But what I would say is we're past that. We're past that as a society. So like the Holocaust is no longer sacrosanct. It's no longer treated with the same level of reverence that I would say it was treated with in the 1990s. The World War II generation is not around to take the screwed upness of World War II and then impart that emotion onto their grandchildren and their great grandchildren and all that kind of stuff, and kind of impose to them like, hey, actually, no, this really did happen. It was super effed up, and I saw it with my own eyeballs. You need to not be such a piece of shit about this. That doesn't exist anymore. So we're going to have to fight on academic grounds. We're going to have to fight on historical grounds. We're going to have to fight in the debate because we're just there as a country and a culture. So I did want to address something important, chat, though. Subri Keller says, who the actual F likes pineapple on pizza? I will literally throw that stuff in somebody's face and see if you were insulting me. That's like when I found out that some places put banana on pizza. Banana on pizza is repulsive. But I'll tell you, I'm a pineapple on pizza guy. This is a Maui Wowie pizza from Mellow Mushroom Pizzeria. And it is a thick crust. It has garlic butter and Parmesan on the crust. The internal components, it has a pesto base, mozzarella cheese. It has bacon, chicken, banana peppers, and pineapple. And oh my God, if I could eat this for the rest of my life without health consequences, I would eat this every day. Okay? I genuinely love this pizza. It is so good. Dongus McBungus for 5 says, it sucks that Sam Hyde is funny because his 14 layers of irony masking dog whistles has been a playbook for all this BS. Yes. Thank you, Dongus McBungus, the brother to Dingus McBingus. Deus Halcyon says, no, Connor, how could you do this to me? I get enough terrible food takes from Destiny. Sorry to disappoint, King.
Play that anti-Semitism and Holocaust. You can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponized the Holocaust for their own personal get out of jail free or whatever you called it.
You don't know anyone that does that? That believes that?
I'm sure there are some people that do that, but it's such a ridiculous generalization. You know, the truth is that most Jewish people lost relatives in the Holocaust. In fact, I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
McFatson for 2 says, you're all wrong. Pineapples are what make it a pizza. I mean, their name's McFatson, so they would know, right?
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So
God, I hate this. I hate that I'm laughing, but this clip is so absurd. And once again, I will point out, I will not explain the joke because Patriarch doesn't like it when I explain jokes because he's also an older gentleman. So he understands. I think he's an older gentleman. He understands jokes, so we don't need to explain the joke. The problem is that Nick's not joking. All right? I'll say it again. Nick's not joking.
You know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely.
This is brutal, okay? The reason why it's brutal is okay, once again, I feel like Nick was caught off guard in the beginning with the clips and with the implications surrounding his dad, but now he's found his momentum, right? He's found his momentum. Brutal, absolutely brutal, because now he's cutting it into two audiences. He's cutting into the audience that thinks it's absurd to say that Hitler is cool, and therefore they find some meta-ironic or post-ironic humor. And he's also cutting into the audience that actually thinks Hitler is cool. And I hate to say it, my opinion on this content has changed. I thought that Piers Morgan was really taking it to him, getting Nick off base, kind of like using his clips in order to show how much of a piece of garbage he is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, it actually feels like Nick has regained argumentative momentum. It's frustrating.
Absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
One of them,
and I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
the Joker reference. Sheesh. 6'7".
To be honest,
this is the problem. You see, it's a bit like when you just say, "I'm a racist." You're a racist. You think Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist.
Anonymous chatter says, we have to fight this in debate spaces regarding World War II facts. This is what I hate. Why? Why do we have to debate on facts 70 years after the facts with midwits that don't want to read books? Because that's always been true. Like history is something that has to be fought over. And the reason why is because there's still moral content in history. So as an example, the United States is, we denied Jewish entry into the United States because we didn't want to take that many asylees or refugees during World War II. As a result, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Jews who were wiped out in the Holocaust might not have been wiped out in the Holocaust. As much as I don't like modern asylum laws, and I do feel like they've been abused to some degree, that's the reason why modern asylum laws exist the way that they do, is because of World War II. So if you want to fight with a modern person about things like asylum laws, immigration, the preference for mixed economy capitalism and liberal democracy over fascism or communism, you have to fight in World War II, because that's where communism, fascism, and mixed economy capitalist liberal democracy, that's where they had a large existential battle that defeated largely fascism, and then arguably socialism and communism were defeated with the collapse of the Soviet Union, but socialism is still alive in state capitalist China, and it's still alive in the minds of dumbass Western leftists. So, you still have to fight about historical facts with dumb people. Sorry, it's part of your social duty. Sergeant Flux for 5 says, pineapple and ham on pizza. Sorry, I need to click somewhere where, there we go. Pineapple and ham on pizza with marinara sauce base, no. Pineapple and ham pizza with barbecue sauce base, yes. That's a crazy take. That's a crazy take. Just want to shout out everybody who's donated so far. Thank you, Sergeant Flux, McFatson, Dungus McBungus, Politics JK, Vazaraka, Games Are for Kids, aka Anonymous Chatter, Deus Halcyon, and Fellrunner, and now Justin with 10. Pierce just complained that there isn't anyone he knows who uses the Holocaust for political gain, and Pierce brings out a Jew using the Holocaust for political gain, no self-awareness. Right, and that's where I'm wondering, is Pierce unintelligent or dishonest? Right? I don't know. I don't know if he's unintelligent or dishonest. Either way, it's not great. I'll say this one more time before we get into there. I thought Pierce smacked up Nick in the beginning. I think Nick regained some argumentative momentum. I feel like Nick is currently in control of the conversation.
Journalist here and author who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because you also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being one out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking him why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
So what I would say, though, is that the irreverence, because we talked about the 9/11 joke. We talked about other jokes. Patriarch doesn't want me to talk about jokes, but I'm going to talk about jokes because I will not be silenced by a tax evader. Although if you want to send some of your evaded taxes my way, I won't complain. I'm just saying this appeals to me because I knew my grandparents. I met my grandparents. I think I've shared this before. My father's father was a CB. He was a combat engineer in the Pacific Theater who served in Guam. And while I think he said that he never served in direct combat, he was responsible for building the logistics that ultimately felled the Japanese Empire. And I'm proud of him for that. And I love him for that. And I love Marines because they served in the Pacific Theater. And I think the Pacific Theater, if you look at the history, is particularly hardcore. Like the Pacific Theater, Europe is pretty hardcore. The Pacific Theater is even more hardcore, in my opinion, even more miserable. The World War II generation, my mother's father was a B-17 navigator, where he allegedly, in the late stages of the war, helped navigate several bombing missions. But the thing that he was most proud of was taking prisoners of war and flying them back to England. They were landing in makeshift airfields in Germany, and then under, they were always, I don't know if he actually got shot at, but they were fearful of sniper fire, and then they had to fly out, saving, thousands upon tens of thousands of people who were starving to death because they were incarcerated by Germany while Germany was collapsing. And so if I had said what Nick says, I think that either one of my grandparents either would have wanted to hit me or they would have slapped the taste out of my mouth for saying what Nick says. But this guy who we're seeing, who appears to be in his 60s, he's not a person who personally experienced that. And so for me, I think it carries less emotional weight. He is the child of people who experience those horrors. And so I don't think that this emotional guilt tripping is going to work on a new generation.
See, that's the reality.
Oh, sorry, real quick. Grassroots 220, thank you, King. I fully endorse the next hour and a half of Fuentes being made fun of for never having felt the touch of a woman or his father. Very mean, but I'll like it.
Of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool? The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years.
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching.
Yeah, you might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So
yeah,
maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members
oh my
were
gosh,
murdered.
yeah, we got all that. We, me mom, like we're, I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mom got killed by Hitler.
Because
and
he doesn't
dad
find
got
it
killed
funny when you say Hitler's very fucking cool.
I don't care.
He finds
I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent
problem.
Conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. Now, what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. That's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
I mean, can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow up?
He murdered 12 million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II and it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's compelling and it's cool. And
see, look at beef. In my situation, everyone before my grandmother was executed by the Nazis, so it's like way more than 2/3 of me. See? Yep.
we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, "Oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mom." And it's like, shut up. Like, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think
and this is what frustrates me as well. So I want to hear specifics. Okay. I want to hear specifics, because he says, "Oh, well, we're going to dispossess Jewish people of power in the United States." Okay, well, there's only so many things that you can do. And Justin, this is kind of directed at you. So if you wanted to dispossess Jews of media power in the United States, you would have to ban Jews from owning media companies, and you would have to confiscate existing media companies, which is highly authoritarian. If you wanted to ban financial power, you would have to ban them from finance. If you wanted to ban them from political power, you would have to ban them from office. And that's obviously a violation of the First Amendment of the United States. And before you say that there were states that had Christian-only charters, we have the Supremacy Clause that states that not only is the federal law supreme, but the author of the First Amendment, Thomas Jefferson, said that Jews, Mohammedans, Sikhs, Hindus, pagans, atheists, none of them should be barred from office based off of their earnestly held conscience. So the author of the First Amendment says that it applies to pagans and atheists and Jews and Muslims. And then not only that, we have the Supremacy Clause. So unless you get around those two things, you're not going to dispossess Jews of political power. So if we have those three things, they're violative of the Constitution. They involve authoritarianism. And then I do think that Nick believes that the Jewish people are a political corporatist parasite in the zeitgeist of the American consciousness. Why would I believe him when he says that they're not interested in probably denaturalization and mass deportation, but ultimately if denaturalization and deportation was resisted, violence and death? Why wouldn't I believe him? Especially when I look at German history, and the most common, or one of the strongest allies of the German National Socialist movement were Christian nationalists. So, I mean, that's where I think Nick just has to get explicit. What does he mean by eliminating Jewish power in the United States?
If half your family
80 years ago.
You think if half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers? Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool?
That's where you need to slow down, because they were incinerated in crematoria and they were murdered in gas chambers, and you need to be specific with your speech, or else Nick is gonna, number one, he's gonna have this blasé attitude where he's gonna be like, we're sick of the moral frogging, we're sick of you using this as a rhetorical cudgel against us, we don't care anymore, it was 80 years ago, get over it. Not only that, you're using this as a political cudgel in order to prevent debate about the topic, which is fundamentally anti-American, because you're not allowing us to have freedom of conscience, freedom of speech. So like, honestly, you're just giving Nick rhetorical room to operate.
If your family had been through that, or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting?
Plebiscite says, not saying Nick is gay, but that Christmas setup is top tier. That is like a high quality, that's a really high quality Christmas setup for a guy who's not gay. Dude, it's there. I hate to say, like, I'm not repping the set. I'm not repping the Christian set. But yeah, that interior decorating is a little bit too good, huh?
And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again, the mask slips.
Mm-hmm. Nervin says, your boy PF Young took till yesterday to finally accept that Fuentes was actually racist and anti-Semitic. Generally, what can we do to help him from slipping again? Also, Mel Mushroom fucks. Yeah, Nervin, I don't know, man. I think with like Lactoid or with, I think Lactoid's an open-minded guy. I think that PF Young is a earnest, open-minded guy. And so I think you just have to show them evidence repeatedly and just be patient that they don't agree with you immediately. And then eventually, you know, typically the truth wins out with people like that. The truth wins out with that. And so not all the time. Obviously, I still disagree with Lactoid's perspective on American empire and isolationism and all that kind of stuff, but he's quite passionate. He's quite passionate about it. So I think with open-minded people, you can just show them evidence and eventually they'll come around.
Flips. And it's flipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he?
What's up, Pisco? How are you? Are you excited that I caught almost your first message in chat? I caught almost your first message in chat because guess what, buddy? I have a loving, beautiful community, and half a dozen, or actually a dozen people have already donated today. And because they were so generous last month, I have one screen over here that is live chat. I have one screen over here that's historical chat. And yeah, we're vibing. We're vibing. So are we chilling today? I mean, we can if you want to hang out for a bit. Lactoid wanted to talk too. I actually think a three-way. We could have a Lactoid Pisco love sandwich. I did want to try to get through this content though, so it was like a segment. So I don't know if we should jump to it immediately. So how soon, Pisco, would you want to have a conversation? And Lactoid, are you available or are you at work? An hour would be perfect. An hour would be perfect. You want to say around noon? And gross and patriarch, gross. All right, so Lactoid, if you're available around noon, I would like to have you in so we could have a three-way. Definitely not gay. And then Pisco, if you want to talk around noon or a little bit after noon, that's perfect. All right, I'm gonna get back into the content though.
You say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more?
All good, Lactoid. I appreciate you, King.
More about he's a monster.
You're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right? You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain, right? And at some stage, that brain is taking you off these rabbit
warrens. Is this an interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who lost.
Okay. And again, this is why this is not working, okay? The democratization of media, okay? In the 60s, 70s, and 80s in the United States, old media was owned by 3 or 4 media companies, all right? And so as a result, information and narratives were gatekept by 3 or 4 pretty powerful corporations that were all, relatively speaking, aligned with the American national interest. And if they weren't aligned with the American national interest, the federal government had something to say about it. Whereas what happened in the 90s with cable television is the amount of opinions that you could have and the amount of content that you could create exploded. And the explosion of cable television, by the way, is what gave Piers Morgan a career. If cable television had not existed, then Piers Morgan would have had to compete for the legacy media positions, and the competition probably would have been so fierce that he would not have made it. Whereas because of cable television, Piers Morgan exists. Well, the same thing is happening with the internet right now. And it's a democratizing force. More people are able to speak their consciousness on the internet than ever before. And so Nick is a force of this democratizing media sphere where more people, all you need in order to become a pundit is a webcam, a computer, a microphone, and an opinion. You really only need 3 or 4 things. And of course, like, you need to be charismatic, rhetorically gifted, et cetera, but that's all you need to get started. And so Nick is a product of an algorithmic atmosphere in which outrage, extremity, zealousness, confidence, charisma, rhetorical gifts, these are all rewarded algorithmically. And by the way, so is Piers Morgan. That's why they're having a conversation. And so Piers Morgan, using what effectively is a cable television technique of social shame, it doesn't work here because Nick is not cancelable. He's already been debanked. He's already been deplatformed. You cannot hurt Nick more than he's already been hurt, except for by killing him. And I'm not advocating for Nick to be killed at all. So the thing is, if moral frogging isn't working, if social shame isn't working, if canceling isn't working, then you just have to have the debate. You just have to have the argument. You just have to fight it out within the free marketplace of ideas. Or else you don't believe in the free marketplace of ideas. You don't believe in freedom of speech and freedom of conscience. Somebody said something interesting, though. I wanted to read it. Where is it? Do you like yes or no questions? Yes or no? True. Beef Supreme says Pierce is doing better on the internet than he did on air. True. I lost it. I'm sure I'll find it again. Back to the content.
Lost a lot of family members.
Also, we're breaking 140, so I want to shout out to the people who are normally not here. My community is normally around 100, so we got an extra 40 souls in here today. If you have a good time, come back. We're streaming all the time. We're talking smack about modern politics. I stream from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I do that on this channel, Monday through Friday, on Tuesdays. And then I'm on Valor Media Network the rest of the week. So Monday through Friday, I'm there. Like the stream, it's free. Share it with your friends, that's free. Engage with chat. We have lots of cool, interesting, smart people in my chat. Super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. My parasocial love you. Thank you for being here. Let's go.
To the Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives. Okay. The Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about
and
the Schindler's List?
Tell me about the
Schindler's List. Well, tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler.
Dan Tesic says, if we can't shame people morally, we can't have a society. You literally can't debate with evil and with cynical nihilism that only cares about aesthetics and being funny. I mean, yeah, you can. That's what we're doing here. What do you think this content is?
Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives,
honestly, Nick Fuentes,
and that's why people.
Silver says, did you check your Stream Element dono place? I gave you a tax refund for the government shutdown. Whoa, what? What? I thought that went to my PayPal. Let's talk about that later, Silver. Normally I would get a PayPal, but I don't know if it's locked or still going to my PayPal. So sorry for interrupting, but when somebody says tax refund, you know, that could be that could be $10. That could be a lot of moolah. So I kind of want to figure that out. Good to see you, Silver.
Like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Shit. Honestly,
yeah, it's a crock. We don't want to hear any more about me mom and me dad. That's the crock of shit.
No, listen.
Yeah, Beef Supreme, is this a debate yet? Because this doesn't feel like an interview. This feels like Nick was not responsive to what was going on, and so Piers Morgan is taking it to him and pressing him, and now they're fighting. So to me, this feels like a debate.
you just said is a crock of shit. And you
It's
know
true.
it.
It's
And
called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize
No,
this stuff.
you know.
You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like
Please.
what you
I'm
just
banned
said.
from banking.
you
I'm
know
banned
it-
from banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to?
Yeah,
I do it for money.
and by the
How
way-
much money you
and by
make?
the
Your
way,
company's
that
worth
shouldn't-
$100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America.
And you
I'm
shouldn't have
banned from
been.
processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you.
Also, listen, can we all admit this? Okay, maybe I'm small, all right? Maybe I'm too small to make this comment, but I'm going to make this comment. We all do this for money, okay? We do it because we have an ideology. We do it because we have a philosophy. We do it because we want to be charismatic. We do it because it feels good. I love hanging out with 100 to 150 people every day and talking shit about politics and current events. There's a myriad reasons why we do what we do. But I also I would do this as a side hustle for free. I did this as a side hustle for free for many years. I would not do this as a job for free. Absolutely not. And what I mean by that is I wouldn't work 40 hours a week and then put in another 20 to 40 hours a week in this job if I wasn't seeing some kind of social or financial return. So, yeah. Numax says money should be a bonus, not with stuff like this. Yeah, I mean, like, I get that. Like, you should obviously earnestly believe your ideology. But at the same time, like, what? You want Puritans? You want economic Puritans? You want to say, I'm actually a priest, and I would do this if I lived in a cardboard box. I don't know if you really want that guy.
You shouldn't have been, right? I don't agree with that. What happened to
Then
you?
don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a
How
grift.
much money- how much
if I
money
wanted to
are
be
you-
a grifter, I'd be like you, and I would go and say,
how much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done.
The Zoomers are out of control. The Zoomers are out of control.
Done hearing about that. You guys
I'm not
overplayed your
done
hand.
hearing about that.
Okay, well, you know, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three
we're
sons.
not listening
I've
to
got
crime
three
minorities
sons.
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about
Yeah, well.
slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more.
Sound like girls.
They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find.
But again, I'm just going to point this out. This isn't effective. Okay, this isn't effective. And I wonder to some degree if this is like biologically evolutionary. If we carried the trauma, you need to carry trauma with you to some degree. When you experience a trauma, when you experience pain, when you experience near death, the reason why you need to carry with you is because you were almost killed, or members of your family were killed, or people close to you were killed. And so as a result, from a survival, evolutionary, biological mechanism, you need to keep that lesson with you for the rest of your life. And you need to teach that lesson to the next generation. And so the World War II generation teaching my parents' generation in order to be proud of America and abhor the Holocaust and abhor communism and abhor fascism, that is all good and normal. And them passing it down to me is good and normal because it was something that was so serious and so fucked up that it bears some level of reverence and study and analysis. Okay. But I think that the reason why trauma doesn't just perpetuate down endless amounts of generation is because eventually survival lessons need to be learned anew because we live in a complex and changing world. And so what's happening is Piers Morgan, as a boomer, somebody who's the son of a World War II veteran, probably, or at least his parents were probably in the German Blitz. He's trying to impart up generationally from the World War II generation to him, to the next generation that's coming up, a trauma that's so important that it should be kept in the American zeitgeist, in the Western world zeitgeist, so we don't repeat the sins of the past. And he sees a young person on the verge of repeating the sins of the past. And that's why he's so passionate about it. But Nick, to a degree, this isn't working because he's saying, no, I'm a new generation. Nah, your old lessons don't work with me. And your moral grandstanding about it, it's about 40 years too late. It's about 80 years too late. Nobody cares anymore. Screw you, Grandpa. I'm going to figure it out for myself. Now, the way that he's figuring it out is terrible, but you know, that's kind of the generational thing, right? Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. A parasocial, love you. Thank you for being here.
It's so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Is it, again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation to saying these outlandish things, which you don't
He has a half dozen to a dozen motivations.
need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws, and that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called The Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality. We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth. Right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at this, our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
In Gaza, it's against whites.
How many Christians are there in the world?
Okay. What annoys me about this, I know this is obvious to my chat because my chat is filled with 3,000 IQ Giga Chats and Giga Stacies. But what annoys me about this is, let's say I Google mixed race family. Okay? Because the white people are not being murdered. They're integrating with other races. They're becoming increasingly brown or Hispanic. And so for me, I look at this smiling, happy black gentleman. I see this smiling, happy white woman. And I see 3 smiling, happy children. And I'm thinking to myself, no one's being genocided here. They're all happy. And those kids probably don't view their existence as an accident. They view it as the product of a loving relationship. Same thing. They even got a white guy in here in order to mix it up, okay? They got a white guy with a black lady, and they have mixed race kids. And none of these kids think they're a mistake. They think that they're products of love. Same thing here. Another looks like an Arab guy and a black woman. Looks like a white guy and black grandparents and a light-skinned black woman and mixed race kids. Black man, Asian woman, all this crap, man. So when you say genocide, what I think is, I'll pull it up, but I'm sure the automod will get me a little bit. Mass graves, Nazis. So when you say genocide, look at this. These are all corpses. They look like stacks of wood. Okay. So there are the mass grave that is pictured here, presumably from World War II. There are human beings stacked like firewood as far as the eye can see. There is people lined up here who presumably are going to be shot and dumped into a mass grave. Here is men, women, and there's a child here. This child was as real as you or me. There's a child here. And this child is dead because they were the wrong ethno-religious background. They were the wrong racial background. And so they were executed. And this happened in World War II. Insane. Look at this. Here's Nazi soldiers executing a civilian over a pit filled with corpses stacked like firewood. So when Nick has this alarmism Here's another picture. Corpses stacked like firewood. So when you say genocide, and maybe if you're like a pedant, or you use it in an obfuscatory way, like let's look up genocide real quick as a definition. Genocide, legally defined by the UN, is the acts of killing, serious harm, preventing births, which they're probably going for the preventing births part of it, committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as codified in the 1948 Genocide Convention. And because genocide can be cultural, what they're trying to do, what Nick Fuentes is doing, what these people are doing, is they're trying to evoke the emotion of mass graves and mass slaughter, but they're trying to apply it to voluntary race mixing. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say that the existence of this family is akin to lining up civilians and shooting them in the back of the head. And it's just not true. So listen, did I marry a white woman? I married a white woman. There's in-group preference. When you look at stats, most families are not mixed race families. Most families are not interracial. Intraracial? I don't know what you would say. They're within the race. Like Hispanics tend to marry Hispanics. Whites tend to marry whites. Northern European whites marry Northern European whites. Blacks marry blacks, et cetera, et cetera. But there's exceptions to the rule. And obviously, over time, as we become more comfortable with each other, we miscegenate, which I'm not saying in a negative connotation. We miscegenate, and it becomes less of a big deal over time. So once again, I'll try not to moral frog about this too much. But the reason why I scoff at Nick, the reason why I laugh at Nick, the reason why I think that the Groypers are wrong, the reason why I think they're stupid to a degree, is because you cannot earnestly look at those families of mixed race couples that love each other and love their children, and then look at dead bodies stacked like firewood and say these are the same thing. You're an idiot if you believe that.
Well, like me,
1 point some billion,
yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay, so with a straight
I think it's 16, but okay.
face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million.
No, Piers. Unfortunately, listen, I do think Piers is doing a good job of pressing Nick, but I feel like he's unprepared for this conversation. Obviously, 15 million Jews or 16 million Jews are not the one. And I already know Nick is going to answer this. He's going to say Jews aren't the people who are invading these countries. What they're doing is they're advocating for mass immigration, so societies are more pluralistic, so societies are more tolerant. That way, Jews become just another person within the country.
People, when there are over 1 billion Christians, there is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
who am I losing to?
White people,
who
these
am I losing to?
White people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it. Mass migration. You're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that
neglects to mention the fact that out of those 10 million illegal immigrants, almost all of them are Christian. Now they're brown. Maybe there's some of them that are more white than they are brown. Maybe there's some that are more black than they are brown. Neglects to mention the fact that they're Christian and they're descendants from another European colonial project, which is very frustrating to me.
That's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be in Israel. In 50 years, there isn't going to be a white Christendom.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
You're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You're talking about.
Are we done talking about
Let's roll another clip.
why genocide?
Well, no,
and
I'm coming to the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands. Just take a look.
That's true.
Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much. You're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly. So they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you with...
Okay. I've said this before. I'll say this again. I think that our pop culture is consumed by false prophets. I think Vosh is a false prophet. I think Hassan Piker is a false prophet. I hate to say it, but I think to some degree Destiny is a false prophet. I think Nick is a false prophet. I think that Myron Gaines is a false prophet. And what I mean by that, I should probably differentiate Stephen from the others. They are selling young men on a worldview that is bad for them, that lines their own pockets. And by the way, I am obviously, we got 10 super chats, so I really appreciate it. Quick show, by the way. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. And I'll thank all my super chatters in a moment. But realistically, what I think is needed is I think young men need to get their shit together. I think they need to work their jobs. I think they need to pay their bills. I think they need to leave other people alone. I think they need to take care of their communities. That's not a particularly sexy perspective on the internet. If I wanted to make $1 billion, then all I would do is I would just start like retweeting Hitler shit or retweeting Maoist shit on Twitter, and then I would become a tanky. And because it's so a tanky or a fascist, and because it's so sexy to have like a crazy ideology these days, I could probably generate an audience off of being a psychopath. But I think that what's happened is the psychos have dominated the conversation so aggressively that people have forgotten, especially on the internet, how to be normal. And so I'm trying to encourage people to be as normal as possible. And I'm trying to say that our society, while maybe not perfect, is a lot better than a lot of other societies, including authoritarian communist and fascist societies. So the whole point is, with these doomsday prophets, I'll differentiate Destiny real quick. I think what Destiny sells, which I don't like, he subscribes to this ideology. He subscribes to freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. He subscribes to pay your bills, pay your taxes, and leave other people alone. He subscribes to the right to self-defense up to and including against a tyrannical government. And then he also subscribes to constitutionalism and due process and the equality of void nil. I am a false prophet and God is a superstition. Dude, I watched that clip last night. That's from There Will Be Blood. Man, what a fire clip. What a fire clip, dude. Void nil. Thank you. What a flashback. What a flashbang. Thank you. But anyways, Stephen believes in all this stuff, but then we don't agree on what you do once you're free, right? That's what we don't agree on. We agree, Stephen and I, we agree on a federal, constitutional, representative, democratic republic. Stephen and I agree on all these things, but we don't agree on what you do with your freedom once you have it. And so that's where I'm saying, like, don't listen to the false prophets. Fuck them. They want you to stay in your gaming chair. They want you to super chat and give memberships, but they don't want you to work out. They don't want you to improve. They don't want you to go outside. They don't want you to, go get a girlfriend. They don't want you to get married. They don't want you to have kids. They don't want you to grow up. They want you to stay in a state of perpetual adolescence. And I don't want that for you. I want you to grow up. I want you to find your partner. Could be a dude. If you like kissing boys and you're gay, good for you. If you like kissing girls and you're gay, good for you. But if you're straight, definitely good for you. I want you to find your partner. I want you to have kids if you want kids. I want you to work out. I want you to eat well. I want you to take care of yourself, and I want you to have fun. All right? Not too much fun, but enough fun. Anyways, beware of false prophets. Beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. 160 people in chat. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. My parasocial love you. Thank you for being here. Quick shout out to the people who have donated. Grassroots Hegemon, Justin, Sergeant Flux, Sergeant Flux, McFatson, Dungus Mabungus, Politics JK, Vazaraka, Anonymous Chatter, Deus Halcyon, and Fellrunner. Thank you for your super chats.
With your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children, therefore you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population.
I unironically agree with this.
I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic, as you know, to have sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know, my wife would be screaming about that. Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things. It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my followers, I tell them to get married. But what's happening with women?
You literally just told your followers, hang on, in that clip, you literally told followers, women, they get old, they get fat, they get ugly, they get very annoying. So where's the incentive to get married to women? There isn't one. You're actively telling them the opposite.
You're extrapolating a lot. We can complain.
Just quoting you back yourself again.
No, but you're extrapolating and saying, well, you say women are annoying, so therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact.
Sorry for laughing.
That they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land, but it's going to be
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
Oh, you should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called the Groybettes, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually? Look, just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I have no idea what the answer is, and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you?
AKA Batusai. I disavow. That's funny, though.
For a young guy. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying.
I watched this yesterday, and I watched this clip. I need water. I'll be right back. Quick show. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. Thank you to everybody who supported. And thank you to the roughly 160 people cross-platform who are hanging out with us today. If you enjoy the content, check out Valor Media Network, VALOR, Media Common Spelling Network, Common Spelling on YouTube. Type that into your search bar. Subscribe to that channel. I am live Monday through Friday, 9:30-ish a.m. to 2:30 p.m. EST. Let's go.
All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy, have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid. Wow.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's always
you're an expert in women,
free love.
Given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This, you know, you're talking about empathy and your kids are empathetic and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So we are going back to
another clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics say.
But that's what you believe,
They have fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped. But there's a study out there. Get ready for this. it says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watched what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
I'm not angry about it.
You sound very...
He's not an incel, he's a volcel. He's a volcel, a voluntary celibate. You must know your dissident right-wing terms, Piers Morgan. Not just that, I'm not going to lie. Here's another reason why this is not going to hit. This is not going to hit because it's effectively a guy who's claiming to be a Catholic. Piers Morgan claims to be Catholic in this conversation or in this debate. And he's encouraging a young Catholic man to have premarital sex. Now, I'm a normie. I'm a deist. I'm not a theist. I don't believe that God specifically incarnated himself as a specific human being 2,000 years ago. I just think that Jesus was a righteous dude with some dope moral philosophy that we should all study, understand, and integrate into our lives, especially when it makes our lives better. However, having a normie perspective on sex, which is we expect people aged 16 to 25 to engage in probably, let's be real, some promiscuous, philandering sexual behavior. And then we do expect them at some point to grow up and then find their partner, settle down, have kids, et cetera, et cetera. That's like a relatively, I think, normal perspective. But if you're a devout person, if you're online, if you're a biblical literalist, if you adopt literalist Catholicism or literalist Orthodoxy or literalist Christianity, then effectively what Piers Morgan is doing right now is he's encouraging a young Christian man to sin. That's not going to land. That's going to be counterproductive to Pierce's aims. Grasher 20 says, shame on Piers Morgan for berating and shaming this brave and incredibly straight CUM detective. I disavow, but I'll like it.
Angry. You sound very, very...
Sorry, I should steel man that since Justin is here. Allegedly, Nick Fuentes takes his vows of abstinence extremely seriously. And he had a friend named Jaden, and they lived together, and they watched TV shows sometimes, and they hung out, and they did this, and they did that. Well, Jaden became socially distant from Nick, and Nick suspected that his social distance was because Jaden had become romantically interested in a girl. And then Jaden moved out eventually, and then allegedly Nick was joking with other groypers that he had looked for, with a blacklight, looked for signs that Jaden had engaged in premarital sex. That way he could use that as leverage against Jaden in order to say that he wasn't a real Christian. He was a heretic and a piece of shit. Big Huff for 98 for £5 says, whining about misogyny while virginity shaming annoyed me most. No idea why some liberal guys do this tough guy boomer act. It's so cringe. Well, Big Huff 98, to address that, it's because growing up in the thousands, I don't know how other almost 40-year-old men feel about this, but getting laid was like a huge rite of passage. You know, go watch American Pie, which is littered with sex crimes. Finding a girl that you could either have a casual hookup with or a serious relationship with or fall in love with or not fall in love with or whatever, and getting laid, it's kind of, I don't know, like a rite of passage into becoming a man. And then also because shit was relatively like libertine back then in reference to like sex stuff is, you know, the more that you could get laid, the more of a man you were. So effectively, like, what was I thinking? My friend Grant, I won't dox him all the way, but he said this because his wife was like, oh yeah, well, you know, I was moral and I was, you know, I didn't hook up with that many guys, and you hooked up with like dozens of women. So why is you being a whore cool? Whereas if I was more slutty, why is that not cool? And this was the exact thing that was said that I thought was pretty funny, was he was like, well, if a key opens a bunch of locks, then it's an excellent key. If a lock opens for any key, then it's a terrible lock. And I do think that's actually like, it's kind of it might be misogynist. There might be women who are like rolling their eyes in chat right now, but that kind of is how guys perceive it. because like females being able to block bad men from getting them pregnant is a virtue. It's a good thing. You should be on the lookout for like scumbags and fuckboys and liars and pieces of shit. Whereas if you're a dude who is able to seduce many women, then you must be attractive or charismatic or intelligent or funny or cool. Like you have to be something. Dudes do not get laid on accident. And so, yeah, like that was kind of the attitude at the time. And I think to some degree, it's still subconscious. Is that a Chinese saying? True. Christian Blair says Bonnie Blue is the worst lock in history. You know, metaphorically, that's probably why I judge her so harshly. She is a terrible reproductive lock. So, yeah, terrible reproductive lock. Let me just make sure that I address the most thing. Big Hoff. Yes. So now when it comes to guys, I'll try to wrap this up. I'll try to put a little bow on it. Now when young men are having infinitely more difficulty getting laid, though, I would rather take a mentoring perspective, because I think back in the day, in the 2000s or whatever, we had enough social pressure in order to pressure each other to get laid. But then also women were more encouraged to be promiscuous and have fun and do all that kind of stuff. But it was like cool. It was like fun. It was like a game. Whereas now it's kind of gross. I'm not going to lie. Like, what is it? Like Tinder and the dating apps, they have made sex gross. Because effectively, if you meet somebody on Tinder, no offense to people who met their wives or girlfriends on Tinder, maybe they're cool. But Tinder has a reputation for being a hookup only website. And then with Hinge, typically the stereotype anyways, is that you only download Hinge or whatever that Love Meet, that Match.com website. You only join those websites once you've already ridden the proverbial, and excuse me, I'm sorry to the women in chat. I'm sorry to the gay men in chat who are monogamous. But the only time that you're interested in settling down is after you've Gen X, that's crazy. After you've ridden the proverbial cock carousel. Okay, that's the way that red pill people describe it. So anyways, the point is, West Coast Girl says, now I remember why I stopped coming here. Fair enough. Fair enough, West Coast Girl. But yeah, the whole point is that these attitudes, if it was bad for my generation, Piers Morgan generation is probably even worse. It's probably even worse with misogynist chest beating about how much they got laid when they were younger. Anyways, that was enough down memory lane. Back to the content.
Angry about women.
I'm passionate. It's an issue.
You're not passionate. You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex, when are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
Was that? I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them, and that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll. They're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days will tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads like Bradley Martin.
I don't think he's an incel. I think he's a volcel. I think Nick could get weighted. He has incel stolen valor. He is stealing incel valor. Incel is involuntary celibate. He's not an involuntary celibate. He's a voluntary celibate. Yeah, all they do is eat hot chip and lie. Yeah, this is stolen valor, guys. I think the Groiper should revolt against this. This is, yeah, he's a fake cell. I agree. Well, QC says, you will not be able to convince me that Cassie Dillon missed her chance at being the savior of politics from not giving Nick Fuentes a kiss. Now look at where we are, unironically. This was an old chat, and it's still true now. So anyways, the point is that, number one, Nick is a fake cell. He's a vol cell. He's a voluntary celibate. He could get laid if he wants, okay? He just doesn't want to get laid because he knows that it's going to corrupt his political movement, and he has like a really strong He has a really like strong commitment to his political movement and personal success. And then I'm just gonna say this. I think that men in my generation and the older generation need to stop bullying virgins in the current generation. They need to take on a mentorship role, and they need to be sympathetic to the fact that the relationship game, the sex game, has been completely revolutionized by social media. We need to be more sympathetic to the next generation.
Martin Clavicular, they agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing, you're a misogynistic pig. Because
No. Here's another thing. I just remembered what I wanted to address. He said, oh, women want them to beat the shit out of them. That's not true. It's not true. I think that women do want a strong man who is capable of physical violence, but I also think that women want somebody who's emotionally intelligent enough in order to have a real relationship. And this is something that I've struggled with. This is something that I've struggled with recently, even today. It's something that my wife and I were talking about. I was raised in an era and a culture in which there were two acceptable emotions for men: rage and apathy. Those are the two emotions that men are allowed to have. You're allowed to not care, and you're allowed to be angry. But if you get a little misty-eyed at a sunset, if you tell your wife that you love them, if you give a kid a hug, if you make baby noises at a kitten, there's somebody who's going to jump out from like the closet. Maybe not a closet. They'll jump out from around the corner and they'll call you gay. All right. They'll be like, you had a feeling other than anger or apathy, you're gay. Like that's just the way that it was. And I think that rage and apathy is not only is it socially okay, excellent. No, that's perfect. So anyways, like obviously there are more emotions than that, and you should explore more emotions than that, and you should emotionally mature. But the point is that like it's a survival mechanism in tough communities. So if you work in construction, if you work in retail and restaurant, if you work in the military, if you work in first response, feeling rage and apathy, those are the two things that you're allowed to feel. And there's no social consequences to being angry, as long as you don't freak the fuck out and beat the fuck out of people when they don't deserve it. There's no social consequence for anger. There's also no social consequence for apathy. So anyways, but women need more than that. They want love. They want the beast. Sorry, I extended the rant. They want the beast that they can tame. Okay. They want the monster that will be soft for them. And when you're taught to be a monster for prolonged periods, it's hard to be soft.
I don't know what that is. I guess.
Well, come on. Let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home, that all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up. That's what they want. That they're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredible.
No, he would just say I'm a misogynist. He would just say that he's a male supremacist. That's not even an insult in his world.
Tiny, but actually you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer. And if I was in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yet here you are, 27 years old. And most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason.
Yeah, this isn't going to work.
And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all,
yeah, that's not what's going on.
You're very caught up in the labels. It's always you're a racist, you're a misogynist. You're,
You said
I mean,
you
these
were a
words mean
racist.
nothing to me. Oh, hang
You
on.
gave
Whoa,
yourself.
can I respond?
You gave
Hey,
yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't
Yeah, when you don't let him respond and you're just jumping down his throat, it doesn't feel like an interview. It feels like a debate.
No.
give you the label.
Okay.
You said,
You're-
Nick Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down. Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
Yeah, and by the way, God, this is the other thing where he sees conversational momentum. Piers is not an objective interviewer seeking information. He's jumping down Nick Fuentes' throat with insults and projections and all that kind of stuff. And so when Nick, the 27-year-old racist, Holocaust revisionist, Volcel, sleeps in a race car bed, which is based, by the way, when he's the one who's telling the other guy to, hey man, you're heated, slow down, it gives him conversational momentum.
Okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
here's
I
the
didn't
thing.
give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying
Why
to
are you
infer
screaming at me?
something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label.
Beef says, stop calling it a debate. Let's Google debate. Thanks, Beef. Another sidetrack for you. A formal discussion on a particular topic in public meeting or legislative assembly in which opposing arguments are put forward, arguing about a subject, especially in a formal manner. I think that they're arguing about whether or not Nick is a piece of shit in a informal manner, but a relatively formal manner. I mean, they're both wearing suits. They got cameras. They got lights. So, yeah. Can we call any of this formal? Not with any actual understanding of the word formal. The only thing that's formal about this is they're both wearing suits. They both are well lit. And they're both in nice studios. That's the only part that's formal.
Label of being a racist. No, you did. You said, I'm a racist. You
Okay.
gave yourself the label.
You're going to have to tone it down a little, all right? You're going to have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did.
You did.
But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you denied the Holocaust. And I'm not about the labels,
You
man.
didn't deny
I'm
the
just
Holocaust.
past that.
As I said to you, look, Nick, I just wanted to go over the stuff that everyone uses out there about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview. Right?
Okay.
You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
Yeah, and then you didn't catch it, Pierce, because you're unfamiliar with the Zoomer culture. He said it could even be it could be 7 million. It could be 8. It could be even more. It could be 100 times that. We're finding more Holocaust survivors all the time. And because he's unfamiliar with like the joke or the dog whistle or whatever, he's not hip to the fact that he was being sarcastic. What did he say? It's an interview. Okay, well, let's Google interview real quick. And Christian Blaris, you're gonna get timed out. Interview definition: a meeting of people face to face for a consultation. Hold an interview with someone. I feel like those definitions are not very good. Question someone to discover their opinions or experience. I'll admit that this is a oral examination and it's questioning somebody on their opinions and experiences. Okay, I'll admit it. It's an interview. Beef Supreme won. Beef Supreme won. Beef Supreme has won twice. Everybody super chat to Beef Supreme.
I'm a maximalist. I'm a Holocaust.
That is significant. You
I think
did
it's
admit
more.
You did admit you're a racist, and you have spelled
That's
out
true.
a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you said you're not gay, so we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, and I own the labels, okay? But I
Okay.
just don't care that much about them.
That's fine.
I feel like the whole.
I'm not saying
this
you
is
have-
like a weird.
I'm not saying you.
Yeah.
It's an interbate. Yes. It's a contentious interview. Yeah. Now I have to keep now I have to keep Beef Fuck you, Justin. Common Connor L. Eat a dick. Now I have to keep Beef Supreme as like the 13th man. Okay. 13th man in Somali society is different than 13th man in Israeli society. So in Israeli society, the 13th man is the person who doubts. Like in a squad, in a squad, the 13th man is the person who's there in order to doubt, like in order to criticize the leadership, in order to say what needs to be done. Right?
You have to care, Nick. You don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right? That's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I have. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been overtly hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile, angry, shouty match with you. I simply want you to spell out exactly what you've meant about all these things, and people can then be the judge of them. So let's take another break, and we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others.
I'm gonna fast forward the commercial if it's a commercial. Yeah.
Time.
I don't need any supplements, unfortunately. Let's go.
You began your show in 2017, the same year as Trump was inaugurated for his first term in office. You supported him at that time, but you've grown increasingly disillusioned, I think it'd be fair to say. Let's play a recent clip from you about Trump.
We played this game in the first term. We're 10 years in. And you still have these people, I hate to say it, but they're just like in denial. And they're like, okay, everybody, let's all go on Twitter and let's tell Trump, don't screw over your voters. Okay. Hey, Trump, don't hire John Ratcliffe in the CIA. Like, what are we doing? We lost. It's over. The time to make demands was during the election when he needed the votes. He's a lame duck president. He doesn't need anything from us. He's not even on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. So what are you talking about? We're going to all rally and tell him, don't hire yet another neocon?
Now, over the weekend,
I mean, is that not the most accurate thing that Nick has ever said? Trump, the whole point of the fell for it again meme is that Trump has utterly betrayed and failed to deliver to his base. That's the thing. What Trump has achieved, there's two things that Trump has achieved that I think social conservatives and Trump cultists will walk away with. Number one, he appointed all the justices who repealed Roe versus Wade. That is, no matter what else happens with Trump, if you are pro-life, then that is the one thing that you're going to give Trump credit for. Then the other thing that he did is he passed the big, beautiful bill that got the funding. I remember all the way back in 17 or 18, we were arguing about a $21 billion border wall. And I think that the border security funds are around $80 billion. Like, we have paid triple what he wanted back in 2017. And so as a result, those are the two things that you could say that Trump has achieved, quote unquote. But then with those achievements, you have the tariffs, you have economic instability, you have, frankly, you have an economy that we don't even know how well it's going because he's gutted the reporting agencies. You have gutting the DOE, you have gutting USAID, you have gutting PEPFAR, which fiscal conservatives might view as a good thing, but they have saved 0.16% of the budget, and they've also killed arguably hundreds of thousands of people through incompetence. So effectively, Trump sucks. So Nick Fuentes being somebody who wants a Christian nationalist perspective, Trump isn't going far enough. And then for me, Trump has done arguably maybe two good things from a giga conservative perspective that I don't even share. And yet he's a disastrous piece of shit. Yeah. Gray Jedi brings up the farmer bailouts. Trump screwed over farmers through the tariff war, through the trade war. Then he's using the tariffs that are being paid for by Americans to bail out said farmers. Absolutely insane. Sorry. So Nick's right.
You posted this on X. You said performative cruelty is the perfect phrase to characterize the Trump admin and the mood of the MAGA movement. In order to compensate for his compromises and failures, Trump has to fall back on mean-spiritedness to appeal to the basest instincts of its followers. It's really sad. I mean, do you think you're the best person, Nick Fuentes, to lecture people about performative cruelty?
Why are you accusing me of being cruel? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
How am I cruel?
You're cruel about black people. You're cruel about women. I mean, you're cruel about a lot of people, and you're very performative.
Okay. I don't think I'm performative. If anything, everyone else is performative. I'm authentic. You know, whatever you want to say about me, it's real. It's from the gut. But
if he had called himself a real N-word with an A right there, I would have lost it.
yes, I do think it's performative. And what I mean by that is, you know, when they're doing the deportations, they know the deportations are not where the base wants them to be. They deported, the figures are disputed, but from my data, it's 300,000 in the year, which is not a massive deportation. They know the base is unhappy with that. So what do? The deportations that they are carrying out, they do a big spectacle and they arrest everybody and they film it and they put a hype at it. And there's a meanness in there. They played that song, I think from Sabrina Carpenter or something, and they make it a joke. They make it glib. And they do that because they're not delivering on the promise. So they compensate by doing it meaner, edgier, more mean-spirited, so that the base will overlook the fact.
Earshot says sarcastically, Connor's the only one who isn't a false prophet anymore. Yeah, true. Unironically. I want you to pay your bills. I want you to pay your taxes. I want you to take care of your family and take care of your community. I want you to work out. I want you to grow up, and I want you to have kids. Now, I want you to sling me a super chat or a membership every now and then while you're doing those things. But yeah, I don't want you to remain a emotionally, historically, socially, psychologically, intellectually disabled child. That's correct, Earshot. You're right. I am the only non-false prophet. You had me until taxes. I know. All my libertarians are revolting. All my conservatarians are like, fuck you.
That it's not happening.
Listen. I don't know if you guys are single, okay? Because we got Patriarch Lactoid and Well QC John saying that they don't want to pay taxes, okay? I don't know if you guys are single or married. The single, I'll pull it up just because I am deeply, deeply, deeply sympathetic. Individual tax, income tax rate US 2025. Okay, I'm going to Libertarian Revolution when someone pays me for it. That's me, bro. Adam Friended says he's married. For real? He got married? Does he have kids? Because no offense, but being married without kids is just advanced dating. So hold on, take a look at this. Where's the tax percentage? Percentage. Is it here? So single taxpayers, 0 to 11,000, 10%. That's crazy pants already. You're not making any money. 11 to 50,000, 12%. Okay, you know, like that's, you know, 10%, 12% to Uncle Sam. That's not crazy. But 48 to 103,000. 22%. A quarter of every dollar you make after 48,000 goes to Uncle Sam. That is crazy, bro. That is crazy. I don't know how to propagandize this, but I want to double the tax brackets, which I know sounds horrible. Okay. But I want to double the tax brackets where for 0 to 22,000 or 24,000, you pay 10%. As a matter of fact, I would just abolish this entire category. This entire category should go away. 0 to 50,000 should be 10%. Actually, you know what? 0 to 100,000 should be 10%. And then 100,000 to 200,000 should be 12. And then after that, we could bring in the 25s and the 30s and all that kind of crap. But the fact that people under 200K are paying 24% or 22% of their income, this is outdated. This is crazy. $50,000 is no longer like a decent living wage that you can raise a family on. 50K is like the bare minimum to survive in society without having 3 roommates. This is fucking bananas. So yeah, I'm not a libertarian because I believe in a state and I do believe in taxation and I do believe in civilization, but I do think that I'm a conservatarian because these taxes are way too gosh darn high. It is an anchor around the working class. It is an anchor around the middle class. Thoughts on taxing land? I mean, dude, somebody described Georgism or whatever, where effectively like you are incentivized to own property through the state and then you just pay a land value tax and you abolish all other taxes. I kind of think that's cool. But anyways, let's go.
And I think that's by definition performative cruelty. You can call me a hypocrite, but it's definitely true about what they're doing in the administration.
You went to see.
Yeah, Call W says between all your deductions like 401k, IRA, HSA, etc., you can still get down into the 50K bracket even if you're making 100K. Listen, I get that, but why don't we just eliminate all the exemptions? Like, I understand that you incentivize pro-social behavior, but most people want to work their jobs, pay their bills, pay their taxes, and call it a day. And you shouldn't have to have a job on top of your job, which is figuring out the tax code.
See Trump at Mar-a-Lago with Ye for dinner. What was that like?
It was very interesting. They're my 2 heroes. Ye is my hero. Trump is my hero. Even though he's very disappointing, I still have a personal hero of mine. And he's a remarkable person. It was a great conversation. We got along pretty well. He liked me. I liked him. It was the love fest.
I mean, he got attacked afterwards for supping with the white supremacist devil. I mean, do you accept you are a white supremacist?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think white
He's a race realist, not a white supremacist.
people are superior to black people?
No, I'm a Christian, so I believe everybody is equal before God.
Including women?
Yes.
So you give women equal rights then?
Damn, I thought he was going to make a joke.
No.
Great.
No.
Great. Okay. So you just talked a lot of bullshit, didn't you?
No. Why are you like mad about this? No.
You want women
and
to be
men are
treated
different.
equally before God, but you don't want to give them equal rights.
Yeah, because women and men
it's
are
fine.
different.
Look,
Do you
it's your
believe there are
view.
2 genders?
It's your view.
Do you think there's 2 genders?
I do think there are 2 genders, yes.
Okay. And so you mean there's distinction. There are 2 distinct genders.
I think we should all have the same rights to...
Well, if they're meaningfully distinct, biologically distinct, and they have different social and biological roles, I think it would follow that we would treat them a little bit differently in the law.
Okay. This is something that I want to make a pro-egalitarian argument, even though I myself am not like an egalitarian. All right. So I think that we are a complementary species. Okay. Men are obviously do a lot of cool shit. We build stuff, we work in the higher risk jobs, we get killed more often, we kill ourselves through diseases of despair, we fight in wars, et cetera, et cetera. Men are cool. I love being a man. If I had the opportunity to reincarnate between being a woman and being a man, I would pick being a man 100 times out of 100. I think being a man is awesome. Now, that being said, women participate in things that are socially necessary. They obviously stereotypically, I'm not talking about all women, but I'm talking about a large chunk of women. Women have children. That's necessary for the species. Women raise those children. That's necessary for the species. Women educate those children. That's necessary for the species. And oftentimes women are disproportionately represented in caretaking roles. That's obviously absolutely necessary for society, absolutely necessary for us as a species. And so if you look at men, because oftentimes what's brought up as a difference between men and women is that men serve in the military and die in war. And so it's unfair that women get to vote on what wars we fight. But I think it needs to be remarked, women are voting on the wars that their husbands and their brothers and their sons fight in. And then not just that, only like 1% of men historically have participated in armed conflict, whereas 85% of women will have a child at some point in their life. And women I don't know if you guys have ever been around a pregnant woman. It's actually really hardcore. Like growing effectively a suite of vital organs inside your torso, having your hips shift in order to pass a human being out of your pelvis is actually super fucking hardcore. And so that's where I'm kind of saying, like, women, in my opinion, they've earned the right to have a say in how society is run, because Andrew Wilson said, oh, well, they don't have a stake in how society is run. They obviously do. And from some stats, they have a higher stake in how society is run. Fellrunner says, reincarnated as a hot woman or a 5'5" man? I'd be a 5'5" man. Listen, man, I do not want a phallus to penetrate my body and fill me with sticky goo that makes a human being shoot out of my torso. That sounds bananas. All right? That sounds like a bananas existential crisis. General Balsack says, I had a buddy in Iraq that saw Jesus hand him a water after a tough battle. He later was a chopper pilot. We were in tanks at the time. Cool. Gray Jedi says, my wife was on bed rest for 6 months when my kid was born. Dude, yeah, it's hardcore. It's hardcore. Real quick shout out before we continue with the chat. We'll probably begin talking to Pisco momentarily. I asked him to push back to like 12:45 because I figured that we were running out of time. Thank you, Big Hoff, Grassroots Hegemon. Did I read that one? Shame on Piers Morgan for berating and shaming this brave and incredibly straight. Oh yeah, I did read that one. Thank you to Big Hoff. Thank you to Grassroots. Thank you to Justin. Thank you to Sergeant Flux. Thank you to McFatson. Thank you to Dangus McBangus. Thank you to Politics JK. Thank you to Vazaraka. Thank you to Anonymous Chatter. Thank you to Deus Halcyon. And thank you to Fellrunner. Thank you for financial support. If you're having a good time, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. I'm live 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Most days I'm live on Valor Media Network, VALOR, Media Common Spelling Network, Common Spelling. If you're having a good time today, come back tomorrow. I'll be there. And then also Tuesdays, I'm live on my home channel. Our home community is around 100 souls. I would say we have about 100 regulars who have showed up consistently. Because this is spicy content, we're around 150. I appreciate you guys being here. Let's go.
Do you think the Catholic Church's teachings reflect that?
I do. Yeah, there's no female priests. Have you ever seen that?
Do you think that the Catholic Church thinks all women should be deprived of the vote?
Yeah, I think so.
No, they don't.
I think they do, yeah.
You think the Catholic Church position is women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I think so, yeah,
No.
but I'm not positive.
No, it's...
I mean, for broad segments of history, even if the modern Catholic doctrine is that women are supposed to have equal franchise before the law, all of medieval history, the Catholic Church is like arguably what, 1,500 years old, 1,800 years old? When was the schism? When was the Great Schism in the church? The Great Schism occurred in 1054 between Latin and Eastern churches. Okay, so the Catholic Church is newer than I thought it was, but that's still huge, man. That's 1,000 years. The Catholic Church is 1,000 years old, and you're saying that it's Catholic doctrine that women vote? It might have been Catholic doctrine for them to vote in the 20th century. It was not Catholic doctrine for them to vote for any century before that. I tell you what.
Bullshit.
Oh, it should be.
It should be. So if you were Pope, that's what you do. You could be Pope because you're celibate.
That's true. And I'm also from Chicago, like the Pope. But look,
Right.
I mean, women, it says in the Bible that women have no authority over men and they can't teach men. And that's why there's no female priests.
There's a lot of
So I
things
don't
in the
think
Bible.
the Catholic-
I mean, do you take every
Okay.
word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
That's all of
But I
it.
mean,
Is
is this now
all of it is
a
sacrosanct.
theological debate? Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
There should be.
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic
I am
position.
a Catholic. I just many.
And actually, so somebody was pointing out that the Great Schism was actually between Eastern Catholic churches. Is there? I thought it was Eastern Orthodox. I'm almost 40, and I haven't heard the word Eastern Catholic Church. Oh, shit. I didn't know there was an Eastern Catholic Church. Wow. All right. Learn something new every day, I guess. I thought it was Eastern Orthodox and Western Catholic. I didn't even know there was an Eastern Catholic. Anyways, it looks like the Catholic Church was founded in the 500s, 590. So arguably the church is 1400 years old.
Things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
Okay. Lactoid says the Eastern Orthodox refers to themselves as the Eastern Catholic Church. It's the same thing. Oh, okay. All right. That's cool. That's cool. All right. I didn't know that. I thought it was differentiated between Orthodox and Catholic, but that's cool. So, okay. So the split between the Orthodox and the Catholic Church happened. The Catholic Church was founded in 590. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Well, that kind of is contrary because the whole basis of being Catholic is accepting. It's accepting the authority of the pontiff.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
You could be, well, yeah. I mean, you could say
unless you're an
that, but it wouldn't be
extremist.
true.
If you're an extremist, you can't.
Okay.
Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never
That's just
deviate if
sloppy.
you're an extremist. But even the Constitution,
That's just sloppy.
even the Constitution's been amended. Was it 27 times? People talk about this sacrosanct document. It's been amended 27 times.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my! This is not rigorous intellectually. This is very.
Just
this is
a statement of
tabloid
fact.
theology. Okay, but it's fine. Where were we? We're talking about Trump, and somehow we got into
Trump.
you're white knighting for women's rights.
On Trump, well, I think women should have the same rights as you and I. You don't. That's fine.
Put on the pink hat, bro. Put on the pink hat. We're waiting.
What's the pink hat for?
For the march, for the women's march. Are we going to see you at the women's march protesting for women's rights and all that?
I think women should have equal rights to men. Period.
You carry tampons in case your female friends get a period or something. Like, it's crazy. The white knighting is
I'd have no problem
diabolical.
giving a female friend a tampon. Would you? Have you ever? I don't suppose.
Sorry, I find this incredibly interesting, even if chat doesn't. Ben Singleton says there are Eastern Catholics that are still in full communion with Rome. They have different rights. That is interesting.
You've ever seen a tampon, have you?
Gross. Absolutely not.
You
Get that away
think
from me.
tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're filled with period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow.
Are you into that? You like that? You,
have you ever
got
seen
a lot of tampons?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you?
I've seen them.
This is not working for anyone who's sympathetic to Nick. Dude, I hate to say it. Part one is Nick Fuentes gets flustered by Piers Morgan. Part two is Nick Fuentes finds his stride and stomps Piers Morgan. I hate to say it, dude. I really hate. I was actually thinking that Piers Morgan was doing a really, really, really good job pressing him yesterday. I feel like Nick was able to seize on the rhetorical momentum and actually take back a lot of the power in this conversation.
I've seen him before.
You've been that close to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen him. Look, I used to live with women, so I've seen him around the house.
I bet you've seen videos, haven't you?
Okay. Calling this guy a virgin is not working. Number one, calling this guy a virgin is not working for the hundreds of thousands or millions of young men in the Western world and the world entirely who are finding it difficult to have relationships with women. So you're not winning there. And then number two, you're not winning with the Groypers because you're effectively encouraging Nick to be more sympathetic to women, to be more hedonistic, to give in to premarital sex, which is effectively encouraging sin. So once again, like this might have played on the schoolyard in the 1980s. This doesn't play on the internet.
What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not sure.
You really hate that.
I'm not sure.
You're more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
not
very
really.
revealing.
I'm actually more exercised about your blatant, self-admitted racism than I'm about anything. But the misogyny runs a close second. Let me ask you about Tucker Carlson, because you had a long sit down with Tucker Carlson, in which he was oddly, I like Tucker. We got on well. I was with him last week in London, but he gave me a harder time than he gives you. And then afterwards, he was more critical. And then you said this about Tucker.
He's a handler. He handles people. That's what he does. He's a fucking liar and a handler. He goes around telling people, I don't know anything. I don't know. Oh, I know nothing. I don't even have a phone. I am just a clueless tourist. I just travel to all these countries and, I don't trust him. And I don't care,
Lobo Solo 7675 $10 says, how would you deal with someone like Nick who can hide behind so many layers of irony and absurdity that's impossible for his fans to admit he's an idiot? Well, number one, he's not an idiot. Nick is not unintelligent. Nick has very, 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 very bad political prescriptions, but he is not an unintelligent person. Wait, not an unintelligent person. Yeah. He's a smart guy. So the truth, I mean, I know the truth is boring. I know it's not sexy, but when you're talking about young, nothing that Nick has said, or excuse me, nothing that has been said in this conversation helps young men integrate into society. It doesn't help them get employed. It doesn't help them get their shit together. It doesn't help them. And iron sharpens iron. I know we have a small community, but I like to think that everybody is pushing in a positive direction in this community and tries to help each other out, especially when people ask for help. So we're small because we're not as sexy as saying, let's do communism or let's do fascism. But I think it's important. And I think you have to start small and you have to care. And then when it comes to things like even just something as simple, which is obvious to you, which is Nick is saying that the white race is being genocided. And he uses a definitional, I think, flourish in order to say that since white people are disappearing through miscegenation, through reduced birth rates, that we are losing something that is worth like propagating and encouraging and growing and all that kind of stuff. And so white men who feel disenfranchised from society and aren't going to have kids, they can sympathize with that. But I think that any sane person, if they saw me talking earlier where they're like, hey, here's a genocide from World War II where you're stacking corpses like firewood. Here's a happy mixed race family. Saying that a happy mixed race family is the same as stacking corpses like firewood is fucking crazy. That might seem obvious to you. They might have actually just never thought about it. They might have never thought about it because Nick is charismatic. Nick is funny. Nick is interesting. So yeah, I think you just have to talk to them like they're human beings and you have to tell them the truth. That's it. Thank you, Lobo Solo, for the donation, by the way.
Maybe that alienates me from people in the conservative movement. I don't care. I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to be a party to whatever that is. Whatever that CIA bullshit is, I'm not going to be a part of it. So, now that I've heard enough from Tucker and I've heard enough from other people and I've seen enough, this guy's not who he says he is. Not an ally. Stay the fuck away from me. You're weird, dude. You're weird.
See, what would have been great is if you'd said that to him when you were sitting opposite him.
Well, when I was sitting opposite him at the dinner and in the interview, he was nothing but nice. He was very nice to me and very cordial, and he didn't call me an anti-Semite, and he didn't even press me on it at all. And I thought he would, and I almost wanted him to. He was nothing but nice, and we had a great time. We had a really great dinner, really great interview, and I felt really good about it. And the next week on my show, I said, he really surprised me. He's great. And then every interview he's done since, all he does is call me an anti-Semite. He goes, well, I hate his anti-Semitism. And, I wonder why people like him. And so I just think that's two-faced. So after that experience, it kind of turned me off. I didn't like that, but he's going to do what he's going to do. He's still a nice guy, but I think he's two-faced.
What about Candace Owens? You had a sit down with her. She called you out on a few of your more incendiary comments. You've been attacking her quite virulently recently. What's going on there?
Well, it's me and her. We're so complicated. We're on and off.
No, he doesn't know the memes. He doesn't know the memes. I don't know if this is going to get challenged or not. Maybe Piers Morgan will surprise me. And he'll be like, no, that's bullshit. You guys aren't in a relationship. But the meme within 12:35. Okay, so I should go talk to Pisco now. Pisco, jump in my chat when you're ready. I think I'm good on this segment. The meme is that Candace Owens is like the one schizophrenic black woman that can save Nick from virginity. And I think that's it's hysterical. Like he talked about, like, it was a really like schizophrenic meme where he was like, what if Candace and I get together and then it turns out that she's trans and she's been trans the whole time? And then what if it turns out that I'm trans and she's a trans woman, so she has a penis, and I'm a trans man, so I have a vagina, and then I'm her mom. And like he goes into this like entire thing, which sounds like he actually just like lost connection with reality for a second. But it was like a I don't know, it was like talking to your friend on acid. Like if your friend was on acid and having like hallucinations where they were taking these things that were kind of like comedically or thematically related, but then they blended them in the weirdest way possible. That's kind of what Nick did. So yeah, so I respect it. I respect the memes, and I don't think Piers Morgan is going to catch it.
It's very passionate on both sides. I think there's this intense desire to be friends, but a frustration where we disagree with each other. There's a rivalry. But I thought we were going to have a friendly conversation, and then she kind of did the same thing. We're going to go on a show during the war with Iran. We're literally in the middle of a war. And she texted me the day before the United States bombed Fort O. And she said, would you like to come on my show? I said, absolutely. I said, is this going to be about Iran? She goes, I don't do setups. I said, yeah, let's do it. I come on the show, and then she's like got this weird hostile demeanor. She's doing the clip thing. Then she puts it behind a paywall. It was ridiculous. So that really was not nice. And then I think this whole Charlie Kirk thing, I think she's gone insane. I think she's absolutely lost her mind. So
yeah. Doobie for 10 says he argues that white people are intentionally being conditioned to pursue interracial marriages and also being discouraged from expressing a preference for other white people. He's not entirely wrong. Sure. Doobie, I understand that if you're just being descriptive, every time that you see a mixed race commercial where it's a black guy and a white woman, I think black men are being encouraged in order to date outside their race. I think white women are being encouraged to date outside of their race. I think subconsciously white men are being encouraged to date outside their race, even with those commercials. But the reason why you won't see it in the opposite, where it's a white man with a black wife, or you'll see it rarely, is because of the power dynamic, right? So they're not trying to evoke a white savior complex and a white man dating a black woman, so they don't want to be insulting to black folk. And I think there's like a progressive propaganda element to it, but once again, the thrust of my statement is that miscegenation, which I'm being descriptive, I'm not trying to morally load it, race mixing is not the same in any shape, way, or form with genocide, or at least not the way that we conceptualize genocide. It's not the same as mass executing people. Well, QC John says, Connor, that's false. White men are encouraged outside of their race because Asian women exist. True. Asian fetishization is common in popular media. So yeah, absolutely. I think that race mixing is fetishized in pop culture, but I still think that I think it's like 90%. I think like 90% of people will date and marry within their own race. And it's not, I don't care one way or the other. I really do not care if you have a subconscious preference for your own race and you have kids within your own race. I don't care if you love race mixing and you're a mixed family and you're happy. I'm happy you're happy. I just don't want the Zoomer, nihilist, Christian nationalist freaks to make equivalent mass murder and loving somebody from a different background.
Oh, I feel sorry for her husband.
What did you?
Yeah, I agree with Nick here. I agree with Nick that I think that Candace has actually lost her shit. She's actually gone crazy.
Feel when Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Where were you when you heard about it?
I was at my house, and a friend of mine who was actually at the event texted me I said, Charlie got shot. I said, who? He said, Charlie Kirk. I said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And honestly, it was devastating. I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all. And we had an intense rivalry and he hated me. But honest to God, I was devastated. I was emotionally affected by it. I didn't even do a show that night because I was beside myself. So it was rough. I mean, it was hard to watch.
When you say you were beside yourself, I mean, you hated him.
I don't hate anybody. I didn't hate him, but
here's a clip of you saying that you hate him. But listen, man, I don't like Charlie Kirk. As a matter of fact, somebody popped up in chat and they were like, you said the world was better off without Charlie in it. And I think I stand by that to some degree. Like, Charlie Kirk was a married man, had kids, cared about his family, conservative, principled, all that kind of stuff. But he enabled the Trump presidency. And I view the Trump presidency as utterly disastrous. And I think hundreds of thousands or millions of people are unnecessarily dead as a result of Trump getting power. So yeah, if Charlie Kirk had never existed, the world might be a marginally better place. That being said, I think everybody, General Balsack says, damn it, Connor going TDS. General Balsack, you might not have been here for a while because of my quote unquote Trump derangement syndrome. You understand that like hundreds of thousands of people are dying in Africa right now because of the PEPFAR cuts, right? You understand thousands or tens of thousands of Ukrainians have died as a result of Trump. You understand that? You understand that like the Fourth Amendment, Eighth Amendment have all been violated. You understand that the First Amendment to some degree has been violated. You understand that like he's been joking about seizing authoritarian power. You understand that? Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm getting less frustrated and less angry now with the Sitchin, Adam, contrarian, right-wing people, but I'm still pretty pissed. I forget what the fuck I was talking about. Peace Goes ready though, so we'll summarize it. I love this content. I thought it was excellent content. I thought that Nick Fuentes is going to have a cultural, as long as he doesn't get murdered, he's going to have a cultural impact for decades to come. I think that in the first 30% of the conversation, Piers Morgan did an excellent job of pressing Nick Fuentes with his own clips. I think, however, in the second half, 2/3 of the conversation, Nick found his rhythm, seized conversational momentum, and was able to turn his clips either into jokes or real conversations about his platform that he was then able to engage in with some degree sympathetically with Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan trying to dunk on him and be like, you're a virgin, you're a loser, you're a virgin, you're a loser, you're a virgin, you're a loser. That's going to play maybe to vindictive normies. It's not going to play with sympathetic normies. It's not going to play with groypers. It's not going to play with young men who feel disenfranchised by society. And those are the people that we need to target most. I understand if super chats are a little bit slower this month, if memberships are a little bit slower this month, because we all have things to do. I am totally sympathetic. I am with you guys. Parasocial love. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.